You know, we all think we know the story of Noah's Ark, right? But what if it's way more than just a children's story? What if it's a pattern, an echo that actually repeats itself? Today, we're going to unpack the idea that this ancient tale holds a powerful message for our future. So let's dive right in.
I mean, this one line just sets the stage perfectly, doesn't it? It's not just about a good guy in a bad world. No, this is the very beginning of a pattern, a theme of separation, a choice that really does echo through time.
All right, so before we even get to the ark itself, we really need to understand the world it was built in. And you got to remember, this was a world that had never, ever seen rain before. Think about that.
So here's Noah, and in this world just filled with laughter and disbelief, he makes a choice. He listens. He decides to build this absolutely enormous boat on totally dry land. Now this isn't just some act of blind faith. It was a completely radical act of obedience.
And when you put it side by side like this, the contrast it's just so stark. On one side, you have a world drowning in violence and mockery. And on the other, you have Noah's simple but incredibly powerful choices to walk with God, to obey, and to just keep building. His actions were a total challenge to the culture around him.
And here is the absolute key to the whole thing. The warning was catastrophic, right? A world-ending flood. But life felt completely normal. People put more trust in their daily routines than they did in a prophecy of what was coming. From their point of view, they saw absolutely no reason to change.
Which brings us to the ark itself. But our source material here presents it in a way you might not have thought about, not as a tool for judgment, but as mercy shaped in wood.
Can you just imagine seeing this massive thing being built, day after day, year after year, just sitting there on the horizon? It wasn't just a construction project. According to our source, every single plank, every hammer blow, was a public message, a kind of silent sermon about the warning that was coming, and, just as importantly, the rescue that was available.
See, the ark wasn't some fortress designed to keep people out. It was a vessel of mercy, and its door stood wide open for anyone to walk through. The invitation was there for the taking, but the world was just too busy to even notice.
You know the decades it took to build that ark? That wasn't a delay. It was an extension of grace. It was God's patience on full display, giving everyone more than enough time to see the warning and choose a different way. Okay, and this is where the whole story pivots, from being just history to being prophecy. The source we're looking at argues that this ancient event is a future echo, a pattern that we are absolutely meant to understand today.
So let's ask that question directly. What if this story isn't just some piece of history to remember, but a prophecy, one we're supposed to understand?
Okay, now let's look at the flood itself, not just as something that happened long ago, but as a prophecy in water.
This is the moment where everything, and I mean everything, changes. That very first drop of rain signals a definitive shift. The door closes, and with it, the season of choice is over. It's a really stark reminder that the opportunity to accept mercy doesn't last forever.
So, the flood wasn't just water, it was, as it says here, prophecy wrapped in water. Its real purpose was to foreshadow a final separation, a moment that comes down to a simple choice between trusting God or rejecting Him. The parallel here is just so direct and clear. Noah and his family were physically lifted up above the waters of destruction. And in that same way, the source suggests that it's faith that will lift people above a final future shaking of the world.
So, how does this all come together? How does it all connect? Well, let's look at what our source calls the enduring pattern.
You see, after the storm, the story doesn't end with destruction. It ends with a brand new beginning on a cleansed earth. The old world passing away to make room for a new dawn. That is the point of the whole pattern. And then, of course, comes the symbol that everyone knows, the rainbow. But it's defined here as something so much more. It's God's signature of promise. And it's not just pointing backward to the flood that ended, it's pointing forward to a future of restoration.
So if there's one ultimate takeaway, it's this. The story of the ark, despite the terrible flood, is really a story about restoration. Judgment is a moment in time, but restoration, that is the final word.
So here's that pattern broken down, the one that echoes through time. First, there's a warning before things get shaken up. Second, a rescue is prepared before the reckoning. Third, that reckoning arrives, and it creates a separation. And finally, those who trusted the warning find themselves standing in a world made new.
And that brings it all right back to us, to today. The lessons from this pattern are pretty clear, aren't they? Build your faith while the sky is still clear. Walk through that door of mercy while it's still open, and choose to trust before the storm announces itself.
We'll end on this thought. The flood was the absolute end of an age, yes, but it was faith that built the bridge to the future. It's a timeless story, and maybe, just maybe, a timeless warning.